to ask the First Minister what engagement she has planned for the rest of the week.
First Minister.
Engagements to take forward the Government's programme for Scotland.
Kezia Dugdale.
Thank you. It has been 10 months since the election, yet parents and teachers still remain in the dark about the SNP's plans for our schools. And as we've just heard, the Education Secretary has kicked the consultation on how schools are run into the long grass. And the First Minister said that that's just one part of our education reforms. And she's right. There's also the Education Bill, the very symbol of this government's apparent #1 priority. It has been kicked into the long grass too. The SNP's power grab to centralise every school budget in the country, kicked into the long grass as well. And the rollout of national testing, which he also mentioned, has been delayed as well. Education was the First Minister's defining mission. Isn't it the case that education is defining this government as indecisive and distracted?
First Minister.
Well, I think that question demonstrates that when a member of Kezia Dugdale's own party, after spending the weekend at their conference, described Kezia Dugdale as simply a pound shop Ruth Davidson, he was absolutely right. Maybe more like buy one, get one free. Kezia Dugdale has just said there, where's the Education Bill? The Education Bill is what is going to deliver the proposals from the governance review. And when we have considered the more than 1,000 responses to that and brought forward our proposals to Parliament, we will also bring forward a bill, as we said we would do. But Kezia Dugdale also said that we are, I think I got it right, we are centralising education budgets. I mean, really? We're giving £120 million direct to head teachers in almost every single one of our schools across the country, giving resources and the power to use those resources direct to head teachers. Only in the world of Scottish Labour could that be described as centralising education budgets. It's the exact opposite of centralising education budgets. Giving it to head teachers is decentralising it. And what we're doing in our schools through that extra resources is empowering head teachers to deliver what they think is required to improve attainment. That's building on the work of our Attainment Challenge. The National Improvement Framework, as I've already said to the other half of the Act, is making sure that we have the data to track improvements in our schools. This is the kind of work we are getting on with day in and day out. And I say to Kezia Dugdale what I said to Ruth Davidson, maybe they should get out a bit more into our schools, as I was yesterday, and see a bit more of what's happening in reality.
Kezia Dugdale.
The SNP government have failed for 10 years in education. No wonder she has to resort to personal attacks. That is beneath her. That's what we expected of Alex Salmond, not of the First Minister who's committed to closing the gap. And it's not just the lack of progress that's the problem. It's not just the lack of progress that's the problem. It's actually the fact that things are going backwards. John Swinney spent years cutting education budgets as Finance Minister. He cut over 4,000 teachers, 1,000 support staff. He cut 150,000 student places in our colleges. He cut university budgets and he slashed grants for students as well. Now John Swinney faces the consequences of John Swinney's own decisions. He was supposed to be the safe pair of hands, but now we know that John Swinney is fast getting a reputation for dropping the ball on education. If teachers and parents can see that the Education Secretary is letting down Scotland's children, why can't this First Minister?
First Minister.
True. I mean, Kezia Dugdale has come here week after week and stood up in this chamber and alleged that spending on our schools was going down. We had figures published this week for the most recent year that we have these statistics for, showing that there was a real terms increase in education spending across our local authority areas. Kezia Dugdale's scaremongering on this has been absolutely exposed. Take universities. We have record numbers of young people now going into our universities. We are not just meeting, we are exceeding our manifesto commitment in terms of whole-time equivalent places in our college sector. We are seeing the attainment gap start to narrow. We are seeing more people from deprived communities going to university, was in the case when we took office. So we are seeing progress because of the decisions this government has taken and the investments this government has made. But there's so much more work still to do, which is why we will go on with the reforms in our education system that will make sure we deliver the commitments we've made to young people and parents right across this country.
Kezia Dugdale.
First Minister gave the game away there, Presiding Officer, because she said in the last year the money for education went up. That's supposed to make up for it going down over the 9 years that preceded it. And the reality is that she has cut £1.5 billion from local services since 2011. That's the truth she can't escape from. And I wouldn't want the First Minister to think that John Swinney hasn't been busy. He's launched an improvement framework, a governance review and an advertising campaign. He's just not done anything to improve our schools. And it's just not him as well. Since May, this government has launched more than 120 consultations and reviews. That's 3 a week. The Enterprise Review alone has 3 reviews within it. The Health and Social Care Delivery Plan, another 4 reviews within it. There is even a review into the review of fracking. This might make sense if this was a new government, but this SNP government has been in place for 10 years. Now, I know the First Minister has only one thing on her mind, but when is she going to stop talking about governing and actually start doing some governing?
First Minister.
Can I say to Kezia Dugdale, and I would advise her to listen to this, this government will never stop talking to and engaging with and consulting with the people of Scotland, because actually Labour stopped doing that. And they went from first place to second place in Scottish politics, and then they went from second place to third place, and who knows right now where they're going to end up. But let's get back to education. Kezia Dugdale comes here and talks about education funding. Now, I've got a very basic question for Kezia Dugdale. If she doesn't think enough money is being spent on schools in council areas across our country, why is it that there are Labour councils right now, after spending 10 years moaning about it, proposing to freeze the council tax next year? Why aren't they using the power that they've spent 10 years asking for and refusing to raise extra money for education? That is a question Kezia Dugdale can't answer. But the other things Kezia Dugdale doesn't want to talk about, she doesn't want to talk about the £120 million going direct to head teachers. She doesn't want to talk about the extra resources through the Attainment Challenge. She doesn't want to talk about the many things that teachers are doing in our schools right now to improve education and close the attainment gap, because that doesn't suit the narrative of Kezia Dugdale. Well, just like Ruth Davidson, I won't leave Kezia Dugdale whining on the sidelines, and me and this government will continue to go on with the hard work of improving our schools.
Kezia Dugdale. Kezia Dugdale.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, because the First Minister posed a direct question, so it deserves an answer. For 10 years, the SNP have said that the council tax is unfair. The question isn't why Labour councils are freezing it, it's why the SNP haven't scrapped it.
First Minister.
For 10 years. For 10 years, we have had Labour councils, we have had Labour MSPs in this chamber saying end the council tax freeze. So as soon as we end the council tax freeze, what do we have? We have Labour leaders in councils like Inverclyde saying that they're going to become the longest serving leaders ever to freeze the council tax. Labour doesn't know what it's doing from one day of the week to the next, and that's why they're in the mess that they're in. But I will continue to make sure we do our job of delivering improvements in our education system, delivering for the parents and the children right across this country.